Well, good evening, Saginaw, Michigan Bay region, and the surrounding areas. This is Kareem. You've tuned into another edition of Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. I'm so glad that you guys are with us on today. Today, we're going to have a very important fireside chat, if you will, a conversation about Operation Village Vaccination. We're going to be talking about how we can begin to get those who are most vulnerable in our community vaccinated with this new vaccine for COVID-19, which has been sweeping our nation. So good to see all of you guys. Those of you that are coming in via our social media stream, I want you to like, tag, and share this conversation. Let's get the folks in here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how we can equip one another with tools and information. And then I will also be sharing with you something new that we have that we're pushing out there, Operation Village Vaccination, how you can get your 65 and older individuals involved. And I need individuals who are in the community, if you're listening to me, to become advocates. And I know that we've had conversations before, and we'll talk about that. And I told you all, ain't no way that I'm about to get this vaccination. And I, was saying that was basically where I was. But as you know, and you have listened, I've evolved on that particular situation. I am going to get the vaccination when it is available for my personal group. And I want you guys to know that there are some additional things that have been happening and the different variants. And so what we are finding out as we're uncovering this information is that when we look at the protections that are provided in the vaccination process that we currently have available, it is very important that we do what we can to protect ourselves from these very nasty sounding variants that are out there. So we're going to get into that. That will be the focus of our conversation on today. But I want to, just first of all, give a shout out to everybody out there. Hopefully your Sunday evening is going well. And we're going to do what I love to do first. I like to talk about what's on my mind. But before we talk about what's on my mind, I got my guy, my main man in the house with me today, my producer, the Rob Father. Rob, why don't you give a shout out to to our audience out there on today?
What's up, Saginaw?
He is so funny. I'm not sure what the impromptu laugh at me was on today.
I'm laughing because the last time I gave one of my regular shout outs, you said it was too smooth. It was the Rob Father shout out. So I said, okay, I'll be a little bit more boisterous and more excited. And
yeah,
I am excited.
You got to match energy for energy, right? Yeah. So I want him to match that energy. All right. So today we're talking what's on my mind, and I'm just looking at what's going on. We know that just a day or so ago, late in the midnight hour, like a church song would say, late in the midnight hour, God gonna turn it around. The House Democrats, they passed a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, which would include about $1,400 stimulus checks for American citizens, adults. There are a lot of other protections that are in there. There's money for states. There is such a need for states to be able to, they've spent so much money trying to fight this pandemic. Now there are a need for states to be able to put in measures for mitigation and for, for ventilation for schools, all of the things that are necessary so that we can begin to properly cover ourselves through the process and moving beyond this pandemic. All right. So many of you guys that are out there, 65 and older, mail innocent flyers. I see you, Jeff Bulls. You got it. Yeah, they're not on social media. They're not out here, hitting us up on the gram or talking with us on Twitter. So we have to make sure that we connect with them in a way that is most important. But as I was saying, so we were looking at that. So the House passes it. This is, a straight party ticket. No Republicans voted for this particular bill. We did hear earlier in the week that increase to the federal minimum wage to $15 was struck down in the Senate in a private session. But hey, this is politics 101. This is the part that I really don't like, but is necessary for our governments to operate in the way that we see fit. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, number 45, I'm going to call him former President Donald John Trump. He has left, but he has not disappeared in a way that most presidents usually find themselves at the end of their elected term in office. They usually find, other things that they go out and do. They have passions and things that are important to them, causes that that are dear to their heart, that they begin to work for, or they do the speaking tour. They go out, they write a book, they sell the book, they talk to audiences about the book, they share the blessings of what it was to be in leadership in their particular time.
Stay out of the current politics unless they're asked. You recognize them as elder statesmen, but they usually stay out of the limelight, and which is good because they want all the attention should be on the current president.
Absolutely. Well,
However,
the newsflash. No, number 45 is in full swing, and when this whole thing first started about whether they were going to censure him, if they were going to impeach him again, if there will be any type of a censure, whatever the situation was, we knew that this ended in acquittal. Once that happened, we knew that he had a stronger grasp on this political power, which I didn't expect anything different, the Republican Party, than we had anticipated. But what's interesting about this is the 25th through the 28th, which ends today, CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference. And what that is, it's an annual political conference attended by conservative activists and elected officials from all across the United States, all right, and beyond. Really, anyone who agrees with the political agenda of conservatism really is a part of this particular conference. It's a big thing. Well, I was blown away when I saw this golden statue, and I don't know if you all saw it, but there was a golden statue of number 45 that was rolled out, and looking at what they were just singing his praises and talking about, him being the future, and he is the leader of the conservative movement, or the Republican Party. I always call it the Trumplican Party, because the Republican Party has left the building. Ding dong, the witch is dead. The wicked witch is dead. And so now we see that Trump is the leader of this conservative movement. And it's really crazy to see how, when I saw the golden statue, and those of you who are out there, because this is straight talk, and so a large portion of our audience out there, it's a Black community, okay? Let's get that real. And I know that you thought the way I thought when I saw this. I thought about the golden calf that Aaron had the children of Israel make with the earrings and things that they were making, and how God was so upset, that they had created this golden calf, to worship. And now we see a golden statue of number 45. But if those of you who are out there, if you've ever been to New York City or to any of the Trump Towers, the ornateness of gold, the what I call it, the over the topness of gold, things that are gilded in gold, is something that is a signature piece of the Trump properties. You go to Trump Towers in New York City, and there's gold everywhere. And so this is so I guess this is an homage to this fallen hero of theirs, and they are holding on strong, and that he is going to be their leader. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's sad to see individuals who once had what we thought was a spine or character or some form of integrity, just throw it all away. And this is the part of the political process, Rob, that really drives me crazy, because we become drunk with power. We become drunk with position, and we don't want to lose our positioning or our power. So we will bow down. And this is on both sides. This is not just a Republican thing. We see Democrats flip-flopping based upon whatever the situation is. This is a problem with our political process. And this is why I am a firm believer that there needs to be another party that formulates, that speaks to people, that has an integrity, has a level of integrity, that has a level of consistency, that that speaks to the issues of America as a whole, that is willing to bring people together. And I don't think that the Democratic or the Republican parties have the ability to do what is necessary in order to make that happen. Rob, I see you over there shaking your head and going into a spasm. What's going on?
No, I don't go into spasm. I recognize things that for what they are, and none of this really surprises me too much. I watched the last 4 years. I watched the last decade or so how the Republican Party changed over the years, and how holding Trump to George Bush makes George Bush look like a Boy Scout, or even to Ronald Reagan to some extent. And I wonder how our forefathers founded the country, and those Black and white and Asian and what have you, who tried to help this country become a democracy are feeling right now, and what they're doing. So it just remains to be seen. And you mentioned a party now. Supposedly the Tea Party is going to be that. Supposedly the Independent Party is going to be that. So where do we start? Where do we start? Because I'm for, yes, I'm for progressive America, but recognizing, getting rid of discrimination, getting rid of racism, making sure everyone is equal, etc. And we still fighting those battles we've been fighting since I was a child.
What's interesting though, when we talk about racial disparities, when we talk about racial prejudice, there's enough of that to go around for both the Democratic and the Republican parties. Yes. As we saw the shift of Black folks, those of you who understand history, and understand how our people have become Democrats, you would understand that we were part of the party of Lincoln first. Right. After the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, we were like, hey, this is who we're for. So we were Republicans historically.
That's when the Republican Party was helping Black people.
Absolutely.
But then it changed somewhere between
with Goldwater. He came out with
Goldwater.
But he was the one that made the major transition because he began to stand up and to hold strong to some of the issues as it related to Jim Crow. Right. And as he began to adopt that in his political stance, we saw an exodus of Black folks from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. And it's important for us to understand that there has never been one particular party that has been able to effectively speak to the issues of Black America consistently over time that we currently see. And so it's important. Yeah. So it's important for us to understand that if we're waiting for a Republican or a Democratic Party, I don't attach myself to either. It is in many instances, a vote for the lesser of the evils based upon the situation and what's on the table. So it's important for us to realize that we have to begin, and this 2020 election showed us something that is very important. There is power in the Black community when it comes to our ability to vote. And so we must use that same power to hold people accountable for the things that they promise us when they're coming into our communities to get a vote. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I see happening here, and I'm so excited about it, is that they were talking about the disparities in our community as it relates to COVID-19. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more and how they've actually tried to remove some of the barriers for vaccinations and other things that are happening. We see this amazing coalition that the governor's put together for racial equity. So there are some things that are happening there because you have voted, you have used your vote, you have shown the power of your voice through your one vote. And now when you do that and you have leadership that will hold people accountable, you begin to see some things that will begin to change in our community. We need to do much better in terms of making that happen. All right. I want to give a shout out, and I need to do this right now. I shared with you all on last week about the positive Black empowerment, soul food dinner, Black History Then and Now thing that was going to be taking place downtown. Initially, it was at the Anderson Enrichment Center, but there's a new center that it's a gathering spot. It's right next to where Rita's Soul Food was on Washington Avenue. I do not remember the location or the name of that particular place, but it was a very nice small banquet hall. Well, today at 4:00, from 4 to 9, they were meeting. And so, Rob, before I came here to be with you, and I had to slide in to say what's up to the community, and I was so blessed to see that there were so many people from the community that were a part of it. We got there. They did temperature checks. They were signing people in, registering people. So they were doing the necessary things important for social distancing, as well as, what do they call it when you're tracing, social tracing of individuals that are coming to an event. But when I walked in the room, I smelled soul food oh my goodness. I was in there like, I need to sit down and find myself a nice little corner so I can put my elbows on the table and lick my fingers. I mean, it was a great smell, but it was my oratory, my ears were hearing great music. Rob, a lot of what you play here, some of the classic music, some of the old school. DJ Sweet Ray was in the house playing some of those old school jams. My eyes were blessed because I saw so many there's a Black community, the leaders in the Black community, and not your typical leaders. This was not pastors. These were not political officials, although Mayor Brenda Moore was there just before I got there. But there were so many individuals. I see you, Yvonne. She's laughing at me about that food thing. I got you. But there were so many Black, and when I say community leaders, I mean like the individuals who are in the community making things happen, the movers and shakers in the community. I had to do my little shimmy. See, there's two shows that you get to see. There's one you hear on the radio, but then there's the one you get to see where I do my little I do my dancey dance. I do my little dancey dance. But it was so great to see those individuals in there. They were sitting at the table. Things were decorated really nice. Shout out to Beverages for Bros, Chucky Lawrence. I'm a part of that group that's online, but he is really the person who came up with the idea. He and some other individuals to celebrate. Their idea was, look, we're always talking about Black history and we're focusing backwards all of the time. But there are some things and some people who are doing great things, like the Pratts who are out there who, bought the neighborhood house and bringing that thing back online. And so it was a celebration of our community of different sorts. And so it was really cool. Absolute beautiful day for it. I went in, it was nice facilities. So I told you that my ears were blessed, my eyes were blessed, and we can't even begin to start talking about that olfactory nerve, the smell, the sense of smell, the greens, the macaroni and cheese. It was all of it there, and it was a great opportunity to see our brothers and sisters. So I said a few words just to share with them, and I shared with them some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today about Operation Village Vaccination. All right, so I want Robin, you're going to keep me honest with time because I know we got some bills to pay in here somewhere. All right, I want to make sure that you keep me honest there. So I want to say shout out to those out there who are making a difference. And so now they're moving from the dinner, it was the dinner portion, and they're moving from the dinner portion to begin doing what I've said the whole time. If we're going to rebuild the village, we must come to a place that we can begin to have strong conversation about what are the key elements of the vision. I talked about financial structures, educational structures, healthy food, and then also having all of these programs that are necessary for wraparound services in our community. So they're going to have an ideal sharing workshop there today, and they're going to talk about the things that are necessary for the village. Now, one thing that I want to say to you all out there, I have been listening to what Amazon has been talking about, and this is for some budding young entrepreneur who has a desire to get involved and make something great happen. Amazon is now open, and they're looking for drivers. They're looking for companies. And it was interesting because I heard it again on the radio, but this was something that people were talking about a long time ago. They're looking for companies to come in and to begin to ship their packages. They have a facility there, so taking their packages to local locations around the community. This is a great opportunity, but they're also looking for drivers on a nationwide spectrum. So if you are interested in trucking, you've been wanting to do this, James Carthan, if you are hearing me or someone knows who he is, tell him to lean in real hard. I know there are a number of other individuals out there that are working in the trucking business. And if you have your authority number and you have your own vehicles, then you are in a position right now to work with Amazon to make great things happen in your community, in your home, and building a legacy, which we've been talking about, preparing for greatness. Okay, we're going to take a really quick commercial break real quick, and we're going to come back and we're going to get to the conversation at hand as we talk about Operation Village Vaccination. Stay tuned with more Straight Talk right after this commercial.
Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. If you're not having regular, healthy bowel movements, you feel just plain yucky.
Wow, that's a great segue, Rob.
When things aren't right.
Regular bowel movements.
Elimination is easy to attain, and it doesn't involve laxatives, fiber, probiotics, diarrhea, or constipation.
Yvonne, your conversation, the conversation we had yesterday really sparked some things in terms of me thinking, and there are some things, some changes that we're going to make. Yvonne, your afternoon girlfriend is doing something. Take a breath, take a deep breath, and she's giving natural, holistic ways to implement in your life in every area. So you guys stay tuned for more of that conversation. I hate this commercial too. I just heard it. But hey, what are you going to do? Got to pay the bills.
Feel the results within 7 days. Go to poopfix.com and take the 7-day poop challenge. That's poopfix.com.
1 minute.
If I'm not committing anymore, where do I really want to live?
There's a lot of people who don't have regular bowel movements, so that is very important information. And I hear about that more often than not. So
A lot of people full of shit. That's why it's commercials on.
what's that?
A lot of people full of shit. That's why it's commercials on.
I'm still alive here, Rob, just so you know.
I'm being real, dude. Just straight talk.
So we're getting ready to have really get into this conversation. I want to talk with you all about what we got to do with the village. All right, so let's get in here, lean in. Health is wealth. Never go green. Go home.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen.
Hey, we are back with more Straight Talk. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And those of you who are out there in social media land, thank you guys for tuning in. Shots out to you. Shots fired. Pew, 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 pew. I have my own world star sound effects here that we're doing here. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I want you guys to get involved with this conversation. It is so very important. And I want to start really from the top of this conversation because I really have to own where I have been in this. And I got called to the carpet by a family member. They said, okay, since you're out here pushing for these vaccinations, has your opinion changed? Because this is a relative that said that they were going to get it out of the gate. He's more mature. He's not necessarily in the 65 and older group, but he's old. And so if he's listening, I want you to know just that. But we had a conversation, and I've been having this conversation with my family. And I've never been like, I'm never. But my issues with the vaccination, and I think that we have to be very transparent when we have this conversation. My issues with any type of vaccination, it was really with, I think more so not understanding where things actually were. We had a poor job of disseminating information. We had conflicting information between the heads of our government and the heads of our medical community. And so science was saying one thing, our leadership was saying another. And so the messaging and the understanding of what really was going on was a bit muddled. I will have to also say to you, in addition to that going on, usually when we're looking at creating a vaccination, and we would think that as times change and we become more technology is used more readily available, that things would happen a little faster. But these vaccines kind of were moving too fast for me. And I was like, wait a minute, we got to see what's going on. And so I told you all that if I were going to take it, it would have to see it in the arms of people, see some things that were going on so that I could make an informed decision. So what I decided to do, after I began to hear about the different variants that were taking place. And I need to be very honest with you. I've had some conversation first with my mother, and I'm going to tell you this. My mother has been vaccinated. All right. And I've joked with her and I've joked with you all online that, she turned into a zombie, that I would do a compassion kill and shoot her with a silver bullet in her head. That was just the fun talk, the talk that we have. But I'm going to say this because my mother is the most treasured possession that I have on this planet. All right. And so I want you guys to know that when we had a conversation, and I think that everyone needs to have those conversations with their parents. I've been having conversations with seniors, and a number of seniors are like, my kids don't want me to have the vaccination. And I asked them why. And so there are some seniors out there, because of our conversation, are being vaccinated, even against what their children would say, because this is what the key thing was. As I began to look at, my mother is a cancer survivor. She's had several other issues that have gone on. She is anemic. She no longer has there's just all these things that she has that are pre-existing conditions, right? And I'm young. And so I'm not diabetic. I don't have heart disease. I don't have any of those underlying conditions. I have a younger brother who is diabetic. So during this entire pandemic, and we need to really have this conversation. If there's any conversation that needs to be going on in the village right now, it needs to be this one, because we're going to have to rethink how we view vaccinations. And I do understand historically the perspectives and a lot of time the messaging that we have as it related to COVID has missed the real issue. They've been talking, about it being available and all these other things, but they haven't dealt with the real issue that Black Americans have been on the wrong side of a nationwide vaccine push. We do understand that, our brothers were given syphilis in another national vaccine push. We do understand that there were times when the Native Americans were given blankets with smallpox in them. So our nation does not have the best history as it relates to vaccinations with communities of color. However, what I want to say to you, and this is something that, Jeff, I hear your mom doesn't want it. This is a hard one, and I am a nurse. Actually, so I'm glad you all are listening. Those of you who are out there, I was very like, I'm not getting it, whatever. But as I began to just kind of do the work, and you guys know that my background is in human physiology, study of the human body, and I started looking at certain things, and I began to look at how they were going through the process of sequencing and looking and doing the research for this. One of the reasons why this particular vaccine, and I think it's important for everyone to know this, one of the reasons that this particular vaccine, these vaccines were able to make it to the market so fast is because uh, COVID is a type of, it's a coronavirus. And I need you all to understand that a cold is a coronavirus. There are other coronaviruses that we have had, SARS-1, which was an outbreak, maybe was it 15, 20 years, some was 15, 20 years ago. And so there was groundwork already in process. So dealing with vaccines that use human genetic genome or material, and that's RNA, DNA. This particular one has an RNA strand that is attached to it. So we need to understand that a reason why a lot of this has been able to happen so fast is because we weren't necessarily starting from scratch in our endeavors to deal with these types of viruses, but we've dealt with what was it, the swine flu, we dealt with SARS-1 and all of these other things that were going to birth.
Bits and pieces of this whole thing
for years.
Put things together and whatnot. And it's like to do mathematics.
Absolutely.
Numbers from errors they put together to come up with a particular sum.
Absolutely. And so, Jeanette Cochran, I know that you are in the medical field. And so what we have to understand is that we didn't have to go back to the drawing board, but these scientists, these health professionals were able to pull out really 2 decades worth of information on similar types of diseases to use that as a foundation. So doing so allowed them the opportunity to increase the ability to come with an actual vaccination. In addition to that, and I need us to understand this, there is no 100% vaccination that is going to prevent you from getting COVID-19. There is none. The United States does not have one. What we are dealing with now is one that is an emergency use authorization. And what that means for our community is that when they began to test this, and they're not testing 10 people, but you're talking about 30 groups of 30,000 individuals or more that have gone through these testings, that they've sat and they began to look at them and they watched the outcome of what's going on. And when they looked at the efficacy rate, the rate at which this vaccine has the ability to stave off very severe cases of this, the ability of this vaccine to stop people from getting hospitalized. And then also the key thing is how does this prevent against death? So when they looked at those rates and they were giving them those numbers, those percentages, that's where it's 95% effective. That's its efficacy rate. That means how well does this thing rate? It's not 100%. And in most cases, there is no vaccination that I can really recall that is 100% effective. But if we have a 95% chance or an opportunity for something to bring us to a place that we can be 95% secure in certain situations, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, that is the Pfizer and the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson now comes in, and at the most serious cases, I think it's 85%, it's a 1 dose. They're thinking that if they do a 2-dose thing with the Johnson & Johnson, will that provide extra support? Now, the great thing about it is this: we're talking about all this stuff and we're concerned that this happens so fast. But there were some things that also allowed us to get this a lot faster, was because we were in a national pandemic. The United States, with the exception of the Spanish flu, which was in the 1920. Okay, yeah. So way back then, we have never seen anything that has come in and has shuttered our economy, that everything stood still in America. So for that reason, there were some things that they allowed to speed up the process. Some of the red tape that you normally go through that really probably wouldn't have had a big difference in terms of how good or how active these particular vaccines would be. But they cut some of the red tape to make sure that we could begin to fight against what's going on. Now I'll tell you. So the reason I got my mother vaccinated, or the reason she decided to get vaccinated, I think I want to get in. And I was like, eh. But the reason why I became on board, I began to look at what's happening with these variants. Now, what happens is if there is a virus or something that's in the community, the longer it allows itself to be in the community population, the general population, it then becomes stronger. These things they're created of human material. And so we have the ability to think and evolve, and they have the ability to mutate, and they become, and it's kind of like they mutate into a form that makes them stronger against being removed, destroyed, broken apart. A coronavirus is a very delicate thing that we can, with sanitizer, get rid of. Washing our hands, we can destroy it. Heat can destroy it. So we've seen all of those measures being put into place. And so when we begin to look at it staying in our community, we then allow it an opportunity to mutate into a more viral, virulent strand, something that is going to be stronger and harder to deal with, something that will be more taxing to the human body. And looking at the South African variant, looking at the South American variant, looking at the UK variant, the disease is mutating. All of these things that are taking place, and then what is recent is the California variant, and now the New York variant. Some of these are not triggering. They're getting into the system, and they're not triggering the alarm systems of the human body. That means that you start to get this into your system, and right away your body, it slides under the radar that says, hey, there's an intruder here.
Specifically talking about your immune factor.
Absolutely. So your immune system does not trigger the things that are necessary to begin to fight certain ones of these variants. And so these are early stages, but what I learned in that process is what the virus or the vaccine that has already been put on the market has enough efficacy, has enough strength that it actually provides protection even against these variants, okay? And so when I saw that, I said it's necessary. We cannot have another wave of COVID, part 2 coming through our nation in 2021 or 2022. And so we need to begin to add protection. It's called added protection. And the thing that I want to talk about just a little bit is that there's been a lot of conversation and speculation. They don't know what's going in that virus. Y'all don't know what they're putting in. Things are different now, okay? When we look at who's at the helm of the studies and the science behind this, there is an African-American doctor that is one of the lead scientists that is a part of the development and the founding and the creation of these vaccines. The Black community needs to realize this. We are not in 1920. Things have evolved. We are in every stage of this process as it comes to science. We are in science and technology, and we are there making sure that you're hearing a lot about communities of color. You're hearing a lot. Why is that? Because these doctors are recognizing that the health factors that are important for Blacks are different than those that are affected by white America. Rob, you're going to say something.
Well, I was going to say we're going to have campaigns even here on KISS 107 and sister stations, as well as what you're doing now, that we need to shore up the confidence factor.
Absolutely.
The factor of the Black community is shaken because of history, and a lot of it because of ignorance. Like we don't know. A lot of people do not know that Black Americans and Black foreigners are working on this issue right here, nor do they know the history behind it and what's been going on. All they know is, well, back in so-and-so, whereas we've come a long way in science. So, we need to show up the confidence factor and strengthen it so that we can go out there and get immunized.
Absolutely. So I want to thank, there's some great individuals that are out there in healthcare communities that are doing great things. And one reached out to me and said, hey, listen, we want you to come in and we'll talk more about this because I need to make sure that those of you that are listening, that you get this part if you get nothing else. And we're going to talk about it once again. We created, because of what has often happened is that when things come into place and there is a positive result, community colors of colors are often put to the side or at the back burner or not given the same level of access to things that are now available. And with COVID in communities of colors, in the Black community, in many states across the nation, I think it's like 39 states across the nation, we were dying at a rate of 2.5 times greater than our portion of the population. So we were ravaged by this disease. And so what they have done, and when I say the powers that be, especially in the state of Michigan, we want to thank our governor, Governor Granholm. She's really taken on the understanding that we've got to begin to make sure that we get these vaccinations to those who are most important. All right, that is the messaging. So reached out to me and they said, hey, we got to begin to work and get these vaccinations. So we created something, and she's out there. I want to thank Rebecca Laverick, who's out there, and we started Village Vaccination, Operation Village Vaccination. So those of you who are on social media and that are listening to us, I'm going to show you what you can do. We all can become advocates. So we are getting those who, and the population guidelines are going to be listed. I'll show you those, but we're looking at 65 and older right now. Those of you who are listening on the radio, I need you to come into Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. We're going to have all that information on there. We're going to be sharing it to multiple websites. You're going to share this information as well. Did I say Granholm? I'm sorry, Governor Whitmer. I like Granholm. She was a good friend, but you're right. It's Governor Whitmer, Sandra Laurie. Thank you. I'm going old school. I'm showing you. I'm dating myself. But I'm going to show you really quick. Those of you who are out there and those of you who are listening on the radio, I want you to listen up and I want you to know where you can get this information. So I want to pull up really quick. Those of you who are listening, Village Vaccinations, okay? And you can become a Village Vaccination Liaison, all right? When you come in, there's a link that we're going to put on there. This is the form that will pop up. And the form, for those of you who are listening on the radio, simply says the following. Read, we are a volunteer organization to assist Mid-Michigan residents to obtain COVID-19 vaccination appointments, all right? This form is for currently eligible people only. So we are going after that population, which currently for us is 65 and older, all right? And this particular drive is for those who are in Saginaw County. So I understand those of you who are out there in other areas. We are focusing right now our efforts on community of colors for Saginaw County, all right? So you need to complete the form, and this form is so easy. It is so easy for those of you listening. Come to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. We're going to post it on my page. It'll be on Kiss 107's page. It'll be on everybody's page that is listening. We're going to share, and the link will be available. And so look, you can then begin to use this link to get your family, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your neighbors signed up. They can get registered. Once they are registered, and once you complete the form, and I just want to say ages 65 and older, healthcare workers, long-term care residents and staff, pharmacy staff, public health employees, K through 12 school and child care staff, and correction staff. Those are all of those individuals that are vaccine eligible under this particular push, okay? And so they just your first name, your last name, your date of birth, and your race. You include that information in there. Then you go down and you say, which county do you live in? Your home address, your phone number, the email is optional, and then you hit submit. Now, it is simply that easy. It is really that easy. For those of you who are listening on the radio, I need you to get on there, click the link that you'll see on the page. It is that easy to go through those questions. You add that. Once you send that information, and many of the people have been so amazed at how fast they've put together this system. And I want to really thank Covenant for doing such an amazing job of reaching out to communities of colors and making sure that we get our most vulnerable vaccinated, all right? And so once you do that, people have been receiving phone calls. Someone said, like, I got my phone call like 5 minutes after we were off the phone, or 5 minutes after I gave my information, I got a phone call and I was registered to get my vaccination. And so it is happening that soon. So we have our goal is to get as many people as we can vaccinated so that we can begin to have some sense. You've heard the term herd immunity. That's where we get vaccinated people and individuals who have had the disease with some level of immunity above the number of those who are affected by the virus. Yes.
It's important to note that with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine putting out tomorrow, I think there's some
Yes.
millions there are, but that's going to help things too, because it's going to be sped up now for people to get vaccinated. So keep checking the news, keep checking the websites, things of that sort, because you can always sign up. And you may go beyond the 65 plus, come down further to the people who are, in my age group.
Absolutely. So I want to talk to you guys about why this is so important. If you would remember at the beginning of this pandemic, everybody kind of lost, their wigs were spinning. People lost their way, lost their mind, didn't know what was going on. And I understand for those of you who are out there who are concerned. I talked with a number of the seniors at my church who are saying, well, Pastor, I have these medications and I don't want, always consult a healthcare, official, your healthcare, your doctors. Those are responsible for your healthcare. You have to be responsible for your healthcare, but those who are taking care of you understand the medications that you're on. Always ask that. I always tell people because I want you to feel most confident with that. But I need you to understand that you're not the only person who's suffering with the things that you're suffering with. And so as they were doing these test results, they were having people who had certain types of conditions. That's why it was so important for them to find larger groups of African Americans to be involved with the test studies of this, because someone's going to say, well, I have diabetes. And someone else is going to say, well, I have high blood pressure. It may interact with my medication. And so they've done these trials so that they could begin to make sure that every type of person that exists, no children have been involved in this, but know that every type of person that exists, they have a case study that is very similar to who no two people are alike, but there are some similarities in terms of how our health conditions impact us.
In particular, sickle cell anemia patients. I'm a sickle cell trait carrier, but I wouldn't qualify. But sickle cell anemia in particular, there's a lot of us in our community have sickle cell anemia. So that's part of the concerns that people have too, along with diabetes and what have you.
All right. So today we're going to have what some may say is a highly academic conversation, but really I want to share this information because if you're like me, the things that are making you nervous, the things that you're afraid of, are the fact that one, this vaccine happened so fast. Two, I don't really understand the medical mumbo jumbo that's in there. I don't trust the government because of the things that have happened before. We've heard, and some of these things are rooted in a past understanding of how things operate, but it is what it is, and we've got to begin to make sure that we deal with those and come in with some mythbusters. The other thing is that this is an attempt for population control. I even heard out there, these are the things that we're hearing. This is an attempt at population control. So now they're trying to give all these vaccines to these older people. One of the things, another thing that I heard was that 5G is hitting. So now they're giving the vaccine. And when the 5G towers are activated, those who have the vaccine will all die of something. Come on, people. We understand that conspiracies and these conspiracy theories exist, but we have to make our decision making, the things that govern and really have the way of carrying our lives forward. They have to be rooting in facts, in substance, not in fear, but in facts. What does the data suggest? What are we understanding as we see this? And I'm going to tell you that there's not going to be a world of healthcare that is going to sit there and everyone say the same thing to kill you. Okay. There have been times, there's always a whistleblower that will say, hey, no, this is not right. And in our country, we empower whistleblowers to be able, so that there's some oversight in terms of how things happen. So we've got to begin as a community. Let's stop allowing the fears of our past to prevent us from moving forward. This is Black History Month. We got, the last day of Black History Month. So what I am saying to you is that we have to, as we talk about repairing the village, we have to protect the living legacy that we have. And the living legacy that we have are our seniors. They carry the history, they carry the scars of a past that many of us today have no idea what that is about. And when we've lost so much wisdom through the loss of all of these people that we love so much, that it's important that we begin to understand we must protect the village by protecting those who are living and carrying the legacy of who we are as a people. And so I want to thank you guys for really just let's get away from the old wives' tales and let's begin to deal with substance. So today we're going to have more of an academic conversation. This entire show is for this purpose: Operation Village Vaccination. We got to get those first responders, those teachers, those firemen, those police officers. When we can begin to get this virus under control is when we will be able to get back to some semblance of normal. When we can get back to going to movie theaters and going on dinner dates and not having to sit in plastic bubbles and not having to walk and not walk past your friends because you can't see them because everybody's masked up. And if you wear glasses, your whole face is covered. So we want to make sure that we're doing what is necessary to do this. So I want to talk about this. Increasingly, the CDC has provided a variety of race and ethnicity data. And so we want to make sure that we take a look at this. Now, this is from August of last year, right? The CDC released a series of information that was showing Blacks, Latinos, and American Indians are experiencing hospitalization. This is what I was sharing to you before. This is during the height of this pandemic, 4.5 to 5.5 times higher than non-Hispanic whites, than white folk. And I need you to understand that if this is what this virus has been doing, any level of protection that we can give is necessary. And some of you say, well, I'll just stay in the house. I need you to realize that the unspoken thing that we are dealing with here is the isolation. So many of our seniors are struggling because they are isolated. They are lonely, have not been able to be connected. And so we have to do what we can. There is a mental piece to this entire thing, an emotional piece that is necessary for us to begin to get them vaccinated so that they can begin to hug their grandkids and be around their grandkids and be out in the population and go to senior brunches and senior teas during the course of the day. This is all a vital part of our social emotional health. And there, the amount of depression is through the roof because so many of us have not been able to do the things that really truly make us who we are as people. All right, so the COVID racial data tracker did analysis comparing white death rates to other groups. Hispanics and Native Americans are both dying at 1.5 times the rate of white people, and African Americans, listen to this, 2.5 times the rate of white America. All right, so we've got to begin to understand no one, and I said this before and I'll say it again, no one is going to fly into our community with an S on their chest and a cape around their neck coming in to save our communities. But it is up to us as individuals who are part of this community to begin. Now, if they don't want it, that's their right. You can deny the vaccination, but to not have the vaccination because they don't know how to have access to the vaccination is bad on our part. So what we're going to begin to do is we're going to begin to knock on doors. We're reaching out to those senior citizen complexes. And through a simple virtually, we can do it on our tablet. You can do it on your smartphone. We can use these things, log people in, use your computer, plug it in, charge it in, and you can begin to get people registered for vaccination. Then they can get the vaccination and they can begin their press or their quest toward some sense of normality in their lives so that we can begin to get back. I'm ready for some hugs. I don't know about y'all, but the thing that I miss more than anything, there's this thing that we do at our church. And we say this, we say that love ain't love until you give it away. I was raised my entire life saying that love ain't love until you give it away. And so the thing that I love most about the Potter's Touch Ministries, and I've seen other churches like this. I grew up in Victorious Believers Ministry under Bishop Pryor. That's where that came from. Love ain't love till you give it away. And we would in church walk around and begin to hug and to embrace. And I realized that the only hug that some people, the only touch from another human that some people got was when they would come to our service. And I remember one person like, you know what, that kind of love was so overwhelming. I didn't know how to handle it. And it took me a while to get used to it. But I love to hug people. And I think when we can connect, touch is so vital, important as a part of being human contact. And this virus has hit us in a place that we have lost our contact. I got to a place, I said, listen, I got to shake hands. So everywhere I go, I have sanitizer. I'm shaking hands and I'm sanitized. I know that's not what we're supposed to do. I do the fist bumps in most cases, but there are some people that I want to shake their hands. There are some people I just want to lay a hand because we have missed this element of touch. And I don't know about you all, but the thing that COVID has taken away is our ability to just have casual conversation, to just be able to sit, and I love just sitting there and talking and being relatable. And when we begin to get vaccinated, when we begin to go through our communities and put some things in place, we may have social distancing and masks for another year and a half, but at least we know that we can still gather, we can love, we can hug, we can touch, and we can begin what I believe makes us most human. The fact that we can have human touch, emotion, and shared moments through those experiences, Rob.
Oh no, I was going to say that. I'm just thinking of or agreeing with you because I miss most of all hugging my son. And when he's home, I hug him anyway. You know, it's just that I miss that so much. And you're right, the human touch factor is what brings us together. And you're right, love not shown is not love received. You know, and a lot of people don't miss it. So
And so the other thing, somebody said, "Well, your parents have gotten." I said, "Yeah." So since I back got my grandparents, and I think the majority, I think I have one aunt who is above in that pool, maybe just underneath, that has not been vaccinated. So when I'm not telling you to run out and do something that I have not begun to share and advocate with my family, and I've told them about how I've evolved about this particular vaccination, and looking at it and seeing how it has operated, and seeing how it has been really just implemented into the community, and the efficacy that it gives, the fighting power that it gives, the protection that it gives. I am now a proponent of that, and I will be vaccinated at the moment. If they want to show you, I'll come and get my vaccination, and y'all want to come and see how I will do that, because I really believe that this is one of the ways. It's not the only way, because I believe that prayer has a very important. I think that as we pray, God will give our doctors and those that are in power and different things insight on how we have to handle. Just like we came up with mask mandate, we look at these things, we study them, and we begin to make decisions. Some of you guys do things on a regular basis that you have no knowledge of. Somebody told you to take a B12 vitamin at some point, and you take it every day. You don't even think about it. You don't understand. You don't ask, where was the B12 mined from? But what you do is you take the B12 because it's something. You go to your doctor says, you got high blood pressure, and they give you a sclerotic, something, one of these doctor, what I'm saying, one of these medicines that you don't even know how to pronounce the name, right? And you don't know anything about it. You get online, you research it, and they tell you what it's made of. You still don't know what it is that you're taking, but you don't question it. And so we have made this vaccine to be the biggest, the boogeyman. And I tell you, I have some part and responsibility in that. But what I begin to realize is that I have to be able to use my voice in a way that is going to be conducive to the masses of people. Now, I'm one individual, but how does this impact our village as a whole, Rob? How does this impact those who are the least fortunate, those who don't have great healthcare systems? If they can begin to get a vaccination when they can't necessarily be able to see a good doctor, then that begins to provide some additional level of support. And I think we're talking about seniors because that's where we are in terms of vaccination. But we also have to begin to look at the inadequacies in terms of healthcare. And the reasons why Black folks have been dying is food choices and what's available for food. It is what is available for healthcare. Do you have insurance? If you don't have insurance, you're not going to get. I don't care what any. Now, this is one thing I tell you. I don't care what any healthcare professional will tell you. If you do not have insurance, you're not going to get the same level of care as someone who comes in and has a broad policy covering everything with Blue Cross Blue Shield, the kind of coverage that our governors and senators and public officials get, our state employees. If you don't have insurance, so we have to begin to vaccinate, because vaccination is also a way for us to limit those who don't have coverage and who have poor levels of health insurance and or carry a very high bills. You get hospitalized, and most people in the United States go into debt because of medical reasons. So if you can get this vaccine, you've got to also think, if you don't have the medical coverage that you need, this is a way to vaccinate against that and to add some level of protection. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of people out there, I don't believe in vaccines. I do everything holistically. Well, there hasn't been a holistic cure that has come forth yet to say if we eat a number of rhubarb plants with peanut butter and infuse it with some wheat salt and wheatgrass, then you stay COVID free. Now, I'll tell you, there have been some things that I've done in addition to social distancing, thieves, essential oils, lemons, all of those things. And I think that all of those things are essential to the holistic of a person. But we have to also think, what is the area that we can receive? And I'm not a medicine drug person by any means. I take no medications. When I get a headache, I go to sleep and wake up hoping that I don't like drugs. But this particular drug, this particular vaccine is something that is necessary so that we can begin to move past where we are, to hold on to those loved ones. I told Rob, I told me and my mom were having this conversation. I know that maybe you guys have had this as well. We were having this conversation, and I said to my mother, I am so glad that my grandparents died before COVID.
Oh, I feel the same way about my mom. She died before. She died in 2018, December 2018. And I thought about when 2020 came along, she would have been 100 last year. And I said, you know, she would have never survived this. She would have never survived it.
My
It would have hurt me just to go through that.
my mother's godmother, Geraldine Anderson, is 107 years old. And I look at, and there's some things that she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand why people are wearing masks. She doesn't understand these things. But I said to myself, and hopefully, and I know that you guys, I said, I am so glad that God transitioned my grandparents before COVID hit, because my grandparents, there's no way that my grandparents could have ever had. Thanksgiving was my grandmother's day. And I'll tell you that my grandmother probably would have contracted COVID, because she was like, baby, we love you. We gonna pray, and I need to see my family, because we are a very touchy-feely family. We're a family that comes together. We put our arms around one another. And I think the lack of connection would have been the death of them. If they would have to be isolated and not have grandkids come around, it would have been the death of them. And I told my mom, I said, I am so glad that they did not live, that they're not living to have to be in a world where it's isolating. And there's many people out there that aren't old, but there are individuals who live by yourselves, that you are suffering in silence from this virus that has ravaged our country. And we talk about the hospitalizations, we talk about the deaths, we talk about those who are severely ill, but we have lacked the conversation about those who are emotionally bombarded every single day, having to deal in a world that they are forced to be disconnected. And so whatever we can do to embrace, to empower, to encourage, to promote health in the village, it is our responsibility. Once again, I'm going to put this information. There'll be a flyer with a hyperlink on it. And that flyer will bring you, once again, when you get here, make sure that you get, those of you who are watching on social media, make sure that you get, when you click that flyer, it should bring you to this form that you're seeing right now on our page. It's a red form. You see the little coronaviruses all around. And it says Village Vaccination Liaisons. And I need you all to understand this. So this week, we're going to put the clarion call out. We're going to come together. We're going to knock on some doors. We're going to take our smart devices, our computers, and our tablets, and we're going to get people registered at their doors. We're going to make phone calls to family members that we know. And each of you all are now being powered through our health systems to be able to be a liaison to get those who are most impacted by this vaccinated. All right. Please understand that this is important. You may not want it, but just because you doesn't want it doesn't mean that somebody else does not need it. All right. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in and leaning into this conversation. This is not an easy, it's like life insurance. Nobody wants to talk about it. But I'll tell you, there are a lot of people out there, and I've seen so many seniors that were delighted. We were on a list and we were waiting for months and months and months. Thank you, Covenant Healthcare Systems, for making this opportunity possible. Because, you know, being a liaison and working with the community is exactly what we need. I want to thank you guys for listening to this conversation. Please like, tag, and share this. Let's make sure that we are covering ourselves. We're coming together, taking care of yourselves and each other. This is Kareem. This is the last day of Black History Month. We still gonna be important on tomorrow morning. So wake up with a new perspective, with new ideas and a new agenda for how you're going to continue on your endeavor to pursue greatness. Thank you guys for tuning in on today. I look forward to seeing you guys on next week with more Straight Talk. Village Vaccinators. Let's mobilize the community to bring peace and recovery to those who are in need. Let's get vaccinated. COVID-19 is here to stay. We've got to do what's necessary for us to overcome this thing. Thank you. This is all we're doing today. I love you guys. God bless you all. Take care of yourselves and each other. Grace and peace.
Listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen by the host, its guests, or call-ins do not